Hello. For this video, I would like to show you and talk about comic books that feature professional writers in their letters columns. In most cases, comic book writers, but of these comic books, one features in its letter column a letter from a writer who was not a comic book writer, but a novelist, a science fiction and fantasy novelist. Concrete number 6 from Dark Horse Comic Books. Dark Horse Comics. They've been around since the 80s. This was what year? 1988. In the letters column is a letter from Clayton Emery, a novelist of science fiction and fantasy books. He writes, "Concrete is fabulous. He has more character than the whole Marvel line and more humanity than Frankenstein's monster. A hero who makes mistakes. Imagine. I wish I could script as well as you do. Thanks." More character than what? I've heard some pretty backhanded compliments in my time. Just kidding, Clayton. Thanks for your support. A letter from Clayton Emery. In Concrete number 6, Dark Horse Comics, 1988. This one is Howard the Duck number 19 from Marvel Comics, 1977, same year Star Wars came out. There's an advertisement for Pizzazz magazine. Superman was on the cover of it. Published by Marvel Comics. It was them cashing in on the popularity of Dynamite magazine. The cover is an homage to Spider-Man number 50, first appearance of Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. And it features a letter in the letters column. Wisecracks, a letter from Kurt Busiek, writer of Marvels. He would later go on to be famous. Now, some of these letters are from people who were famous, and some are from people who would go on to be famous. Clayton Emery, well, he was never really famous, but he was a professional writer at the time he wrote that letter. Kurt Busiek writes, "Dear Burke Olanen de Jansen." I think those names are typos, but he says, "Howard the Duck number 15 was truly one of the most enjoyable issues to date. For you see, when I buy Howard, it's not for the social comment, though I like that. It's not for the pretty pictures, though I like them too. It's really because, well, where else can you see a sea serpent in a top hat, undulate away, crooning, knees. So while you've got the folks who like Howard because of the meaning of it all, and the folks who like Howard because it doesn't fit in with their idea of comic book, you've now got to add in folks like me, who like, he says, the folks who hate Howard because it doesn't fit in their meaning of a comic book. And he says, you've now got to add in folks like me, who like Howard, because it's fun to read and supremely enjoyable. That's what he likes. Happy quacking. Kurt Busiek." Great comic book writer. He wrote Avengers Forever. I've not read Avengers Forever. There's a facsimile edition of Green Lantern number 1 from 1960, I think. Check. Yeah, 1960. Not the first appearance of Green Lantern. That was in an issue of Showcase. But in the letters section, and this was the Silver Age Green Lantern, obviously the Golden Age one appeared in the Golden Age. That was Alan Scott. This is Hal Jordan. A letter from Roy Thomas. Very long letter, too. Dear editor, although I am well past what is normally considered the comic book age, I think it was like 22 at the time. I'm not sure if he was, I don't think he was publishing Alter Ego magazine now as a comic book fanzine, but he would publish that soon after he wrote this letter, maybe a year or so. Although I am well past what is normally considered the comic book age, I still find it time to enjoy a few of the ones you at DC publish, especially Wonder Woman, World's Finest, The Flash, and now Green Lantern. He read Green Lantern Showcase. If, as I hope, you star him in a magazine of his own, this was, of course, a letter that was printed in his own comic book. So they did feature him in a magazine of his own. I learned to read on the old Flash comics, and especially All-Star comics, so I have a strong attachment to some of its characters, and I'm especially glad that you have revived Flash and Green Lantern, even if their new costumes are somewhat different. Just a few suggestions concerning Green Lantern, if you don't mind. I believe he needs a friend and confidant, not necessarily a woman or boy, but someone. What about reviving his old sidekick, Doiby Dickles, of the former Green Lantern book, perhaps as a trusted, if bumbling, mechanic? 2. I personally would like to see also the character of the Harlequin, who's someone like her, or someone like her in the new comic. She would be a revival of Carol Ferris, and also an interesting, friendly enemy to Green Lantern. I also think GL needs a fairly regular enemy, such as Batman's Joker, Superman's Lex Luthor, perhaps a Shockman or some such, in a yellow costume so that Green Lantern's power ring cannot touch him, and who can send out electrical charges which rival the green beams of the power ring. I think an occasional bout between two characters of this type would be very interesting. If not this, then bring back the Invisible Destroyer from the second Green Lantern Showcase issue at least. That's about all for now. Again, I hope Green Lantern soon appears in a regular comic of his own. He's a great character, especially since you have changed him so that his power ring cannot affect anything yellow. Then it's answered, it's made us very happy to hear from so many old-time readers the original Green Lantern, and we welcome you all back into the fold. Your letter, Roy, has been well thought out, and we are considering your recommendations. Be assured that we have some terrific villains warming up in the bullpen, and we'll keep signaling them into action to make things tough for Green Lantern. He had some great suggestions. He was a great writer. He created Morbius, who will soon be starring in his own movie. Or no, he already is. The movie already came out. Roy Thomas also wrote the Kree-Skrull War, Avengers storyline for Marvel in the 70s. Hulk 181, second appearance of Wolverine, first cover appearance. This is not the original, obviously. This is the vaccine. Sorry for that. I've been coughing lately. This has a letter from Mary Jo Duffy. She would later go on to write the Star Wars comic for Marvel, which featured a green rabbit. Dear Marvel, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Hulk 177 was without a question the worst comic I've ever read, the most galling of the endless rewrites of the Bible story. I wouldn't have thought it possible, but you managed a piece of work more tasteless, less well-drawn and written than a similar attempt your competitors made about 2 years ago. They were putting an end to an excellent magazine, you to an outstanding character, but such unoriginal, feeble death rattles make the demises seem justified, even welcome. 18 months ago, I was of the firm conviction that anything Jerry Conway promised to be sensitive and creative. Now my faith has been brutally murdered. The last supper sequence on page 18 was painful, and the crucifixion was worth. Herb Trimpe certainly didn't help. As for the rest of the issue, well, how many times can you use words like weak and tasteless? I hope you've considered the implications of Warlock's death. Counter-Earth is finished, only Adam Warlock intervention kept the High Evolutionary from destroying it as soon as the Man Beast interfered with his handiwork. It's cosmically messy to leave a second Earth floating around without an unresolved storyline. However, there are still characters in the Warlock story who deserve to live. Estrella, any of Adam's followers who survived, and most important, Warlock himself. His magazine was always dangerously messianic, ultimately a limiting vehicle for one of Marvel's best ideas. Maybe it's best that he die. Each time he has returned to the cocoon, he has emerged more advanced. Let him rest, let your own ideas develop, and only if the time is ever right again, let his return mean something, even if it's just one good story in someone else's mag. As for the Hulk himself, Old Greenskin is too strong and satisfying a comics character to do anything but let his one fiasco roll off his back. This one fiasco roll off his back, so keep on trucking. And she was not the only person in this letters column that wrote about that issue. There is a Marvel value stamp in the original issue. Shanna, the She-Devil, she had her own Marvel comic. First couple issues had, or at least the first issue had a cover by the legendary Jim Steranko, who also did this cover. Did not do the interior. The interior was written by Roy Thomas, whose letter was featured in Green Lantern. As you can see, it's signed by Jim Steranko. That's not only why this issue is special, but it also has 2 letters from people who would go on to be well-known comics writers. One from Chuck Dixon, famous Batman writer, and one from Mike W. Barr, who would also be a famous Batman writer. I enjoyed Fantastic Four 127 more than I have any FF issue in the last year or so. About the only plot hole I can see is the stupidity of the Thing in stopping off to the Mole Men's kingdom without telling the others he should. Should have known that as a diplomat, he's a clobberer. However, that can be overlooked in view of the rest of the issue. I'm sorry. As a longtime Marvelite, I thought that Kala was doomed to oblivion, but Roy seems to have... Very sorry about this cough. But Roy seems to have an elephantine... I keep on coughing. I'm sorry. You can hear that one time. So it just sounded like silence. It was kind of quiet. Or maybe you could hear it, I don't know. But Roy seems to have an elephantine memory for Marvel bad guys of days past and years past. Any chick that would marry the Mole Man has to be either evil or not responsible for her actions. Mike W. Barr wrote that in this Fantastic Four issue. There's a long reply. I don't want to read that long reply. Chuck Dixon wrote a letter, a pretty long one. Not as long as that Joe Duffy one. Yeah. He writes, FF27 was quite a piece of work. In fact, it was one of the best issues since Jack Kirby left. The plot was a good old plenty of action, just the right amount of fantasy superhero story. The Thing was at his best, and the Mole Man has never been better either. It was even nice to see Tyrannus again. And one of the biggest but most trivial surprises was having the Thing say it's clobbering time again. That's his classic line. These are the little things that thrill a long-time Marvel. I was actually thinking of leaving the Fold, but this story is coming back for good. Buscema's artwork was downright fantastic. None of those Kirby-esque layouts. John's a good artist, one of the best. And he doesn't have to stand in Kirby's shadow. Speaking of shadows, the use of subdued lighting to get across the idea of the dark world of the Mole Man resulted in a moody masterpiece, some of the best Buscema since the early days of Silver Surfer. Keep up this level of excellence, and I'll be hooked for life. Chuck Dixon also wrote Green Hornet comics in the 90s, and he wrote Airboy in the 80s, an Eclipse comic based on the Golden Age comics about Airboy. This next one, Zot number 4, has a letter from Marv Wolfman. I met Marv Wolfman once. It'd be cool to meet him again, have him sign this issue. It'd be cool to meet Chuck Dixon or Mike W. Barr, have him sign that Fantastic Four issue. Or to meet Kurt Busiek and have him sign this Howard issue. But anyways, what Marv Wolfman writes is when Scott McCloud, I guess he knew Scott McCloud. I guess comic book writers knew each other. When Scott showed me his designs for Zot several months ago, I was charmed by his art and couldn't wait to read the book. His writing matches his art in every way. I hope this is a big success for you guys. Zot is a risky book in today's crime superhero market, and I hope Scott and Eclipse score big. Thanks, Marv. Those words are very encouraging, coming as they do from one of the industry's foremost crime superhero writers. If he thought the 80s was a grim time for comics, I wonder what he thinks about modern comics. Zeb Wells is a modern comic book writer. He had a letter published in this issue of The Hulk from the 90s, issue 384. Very good cover, very good splash page by D.L. Keown. Advertisement. Zeb Wells. He writes, I am one of the many readers of The Incredible Hulk, and I'm writing to say how much I am enjoying the series. Peter David's writing makes the comic worth buying, no matter who's doing the art. Yet, issue 380 was a new milestone for Peter. He's changed The Incredible Hulk into more of a teen book in the last few months. And having Doc Samson in the solo story is the final building block in this transformation. So no, I was not mad when I saw that the Hulk would not appear in the issue. I would have been mad. I was actually kind of excited to read it, and when I did, I was not disappointed. So, until Saddam Hussein invades another defenseless country, make mine Marvel. Gee, Zeb, there's something we don't even want. That's something we don't even want to think about. Zeb Wells, modern comic book writer, and I think he's also directed a couple movies. Or maybe screenwriter, or I don't know. Battletoads, that was a video game, and I think it was a cartoon too. This was about 9 minutes longer than I was planning for it to be. Have a good week.